By the time the transfer cleared, $94,000 was gone. The notification arrived as a simple banner on her phone, a bank alert she had seen 100 times before. But this time, the balance reflected in that tiny digital window was no longer her retirement. It was no longer her safety net. It was no longer hers. She waited for the text message that always followed these transfers. The one with the heart emoji. The one that said, "We're almost there, baby." That message never came. Instead, there was only the slow, creeping silence of a Sunday evening in Plano, Texas, punctuated by the hum of the refrigerator and the realization that she had just paid a stranger $94,000 to disappear. Her name is Lisa. At 58 years old, she had spent the better part of 3 decades working in human resources for a regional health care provider. It was a stable job, the kind that offered a gold watch at the end and a pension that wasn't quite what it used to be. Her mornings began the same way every day. Black coffee in the same ceramic mug, a quick scan of the headlines on her iPad, and a glance out the kitchen window at the manicured lawns of her North Dallas suburb. The neighborhood was quiet, filled with empty nesters and young families who hadn't yet learned their neighbors' names. Lisa knew them all. She had been there for 22 years, long before the retail centers sprung up and the traffic got bad at first. Nothing seemed unusual about the winter of last year. It was cold, the kind of damp chill that seeped into the bones and made the house feel larger than it actually was. Her son, a project manager in Austin, called every Sunday. Her daughter, a graduate student in Boston, texted sporadically. The divorce had been final for 6 years, and while the loneliness had never fully subsided, she had learned to manage it. She filled the evenings with streaming dramas and the occasional book club meeting at the local library. But at night, when the television clicked off and the house settled into its familiar creaks, the silence was louder. And like millions of others, she would pick up her phone and scroll. It was a habit, a way to feel connected to a world that had moved faster than she had. The first message arrived on a Tuesday. A simple notification from a dating platform she had joined on a whim, encouraged by a friend who insisted she needed to get back out there. The profile picture showed a man with salt and pepper hair, a warm smile, and what appeared to be an expensive watch visible at the edge of the frame. His name was David. He was an engineer, he said, currently working on a civil infrastructure project in Malaysia. The message was polite, friendly. It asked about her day. It wasn't aggressive or overtly romantic. It was just nice. Over the next few weeks, the messages became a ritual. They moved from the dating app to a more private messaging platform, where the conversations grew longer and more personal. He sent photos of his worksite, blurry images of cranes and steel beams against a hazy sky. He talked about the heat, the food, the isolation of being so far from home. He asked about her job, her kids, her favorite books. He remembered the details. He called her by name. At night, alone in her living room, the glow of the screen became a lifeline. But that detail would later matter, the fact that he was always working, always overseas, always just out of reach. It explained why they couldn't video call. It explained the poor connection. It explained everything. The psychological hook was set not with grand gestures, but with consistency. He was the first thing she saw in the morning and the last thing at night. He built a world of emotional exclusivity, a private bubble where she felt seen and valued. He talked about the future, a small house on the coast, a quiet retirement, a life together once this last contract was finished. It was the kind of future she had stopped allowing herself to imagine. And when he mentioned a financial opportunity, it didn't feel like a pitch. It felt like sharing. It felt like trust that had started with a modest request. He needed help. His pay had been delayed due to a bureaucratic error with the international bank. He was embarrassed to ask, but could she possibly lend him $500? Just until Friday, just to cover an unexpected fee. She hesitated. She checked her bank balance. She thought about the photos he had sent, the late-night calls, the promises of a shared future. She transferred the money. And when Friday came, he didn't pay her back. Instead, he thanked her profusely, told her she had saved him, and explained that the bank had made another mistake. But this time, he had a solution. A way to make the money back and more. He introduced her to the platform. It was a cryptocurrency investment site, sleek and professional looking, with real-time charts and a customer service chat that responded instantly. He wasn't just an engineer, he explained. He had a contact, a former colleague who had made a fortune in digital assets. This was their chance. He had already moved his own money into the system. He just needed her to be part of it. The first investment was $2,000. The dashboard showed a profit within days. The second was $5,000. The profits grew. She felt smart. She felt like she was finally taking control. What makes this case remarkable is not the amount of money, but the architecture of the manipulation. It was built on intermittent reinforcement, a psychological principle where rewards are given at unpredictable intervals, creating a compulsive need to continue. Every time she doubted, the dashboard showed a gain. Every time she hesitated, he became emotionally distant, only to return with renewed affection once the transfer was confirmed. The platform was a complete fabrication, a mirror site controlled entirely by the scammers. The profits were fictional. The customer service representatives were part of the same network. She was depositing money directly into a digital wallet that funneled cash overseas within minutes. By the second month, she had liquidated a certificate of deposit. By the third, she had taken a loan against her 401k. The requests became more urgent, more specific. A tax fee to release the profits. A conversion fee to change the currency. A legal fee to satisfy international compliance. Each one was presented as the final hurdle, the last step before they could cash out and begin their life together. Looking back, the warning signs were there. A friend from book club mentioned she seemed distracted. Her son noticed she was short on a dinner bill, an anomaly for someone who always insisted on paying. But the shame was already taking root. The deeper she went, the harder it was to admit she might be wrong. The final transfer was for $18,000. It brought the total to exactly $94,000. It was a Sunday evening. She sat at her kitchen table, the same table where she paid her bills and ate her meals, and initiated the wire transfer from her banking app. Her hands were steady. She felt a sense of relief, a belief that this was the last time. The confirmation screen appeared. She took a screenshot and sent it to him, as she always did. The message showed delivered, but not read. An hour passed. She sent another message. Nothing. She checked the investment platform. It was offline. She called the number he had given her, the one with the Malaysian country code. It rang once and went to a generic voicemail box that was full. By then, it was too late. The silence that followed was unlike any she had experienced. It was not the quiet of an empty house. It was the absence of a future. She sat in the dark, the phone clutched in her hand, refreshing the messaging app over and over as if willing it to come back to life. She reread the conversations, scrolling back through months of intimacy, searching for the lie. But the lie wasn't in any single message. The lie was the entire person. There was no David. There was no engineer in Malaysia. There was no future on the coast. There was only a script, a network of individuals working in shifts to extract every dollar she had. The damage had already been done. The $94,000 represented more than savings. It was her mother's inheritance. It was the down payment on her daughter's first home. It was the security she had spent a lifetime building. The financial reality was stark. The retirement she had planned was gone. The modest dreams of travel and leisure had evaporated. In their place was a mountain of debt and the crushing weight of self-blame. She filed a report with the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, a process that felt both clinical and hopeless. The agent on the phone was polite, professional, and honest. The money was likely already moved through a series of cryptocurrency wallets and overseas banks. The chances of recovery were slim. Her son flew in from Austin the following weekend. He didn't say, "I told you so." He sat at the kitchen table with her, helped her cancel the credit cards, and listened as she explained, in fragments, how it had happened. The friend who had warned her never said a word. She didn't have to. The look of pity was enough. What makes this case remarkable is how ordinary it is. This wasn't a story about greed or naivety. It was a story about loneliness in the digital age, about the human need for connection exploited by professionals who have turned deception into a science. The scam worked because it mirrored the emotional arc of a genuine relationship. It provided dopamine hits of affection and validation, followed by the tension of conflict, followed by the relief of resolution. It was addiction by design, and the product being sold was trust.